My girlfriend of 5 years asked for a break to find herself. I kicked her out of my house instantly, but when she came back begging after dating others, what I did left everyone speechless. I'm 32 years old, work in it for a pretty large software company, and about 6 months ago, I ended a 5-year relationship that I honestly thought was going to end in marriage. But the thing is, it didn't end the way I expected, and if I'm being honest, looking back now, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. I guess I should start from the beginning, when everything seemed normal, because that's how these things go, right? You never see the punch coming until it already hit you. Natalie and I had been together for 5 years. We were living in my house, one that I bought like 4 years ago with help from my parents for the down payment. And honestly, everything was going well. Or so I thought. We had our routine, We'd have breakfast together when we could, watch Netflix at night. On weekends, we'd do normal stuff like go to the movies or eat at some new place. Nothing spectacular, but it was comfortable. It was stable. And I thought that's what we both wanted. My sister always told me that Natalie was cool, but like very dependent on me, and I'd tell her she was exaggerating, that we were just close. Trevor, my best friend since college, had also mentioned a couple times that Natalie seemed restless lately. But I didn't pay much attention because Trevor is always analyzing everyone's behavior. It's just how he is. The night everything changed was a Tuesday, I think, or Wednesday. I'm not exactly sure what day of the week it was, but I do remember we were eating pasta, because I had cooked my famous fettuccine alfredo, which is basically the only dish I know how to make. Well, we were sitting there at the dining room table, eating peacefully, when Natalie suddenly puts down her fork and tells me, "We need to talk." And I thought, well, here comes something. But honestly, I expected it to be about her work or about plans for the next weekend. I don't know, something normal. But no. She looks at me and drops. "I think I need some time for myself. I need to find myself. I want to take a break." I sat there processing those words because they literally made no sense to me. A break? After 5 years? I asked her what exactly that meant. A break. Because to me that sounded like she wanted to be with other people but keep the option of coming back to me if things didn't work out. And she started with all that talk about how it wasn't that she just needed space to grow as a person, that she felt stuck, that she didn't know who she was outside of our relationship. I listened to her talk for like 10 minutes, going around and around the same point, and when she finished, I told her something I think she didn't expect. I told her, "Okay, you can take your break, but you can't do it living in my house. If you want to be alone and find yourself or whatever, then you need to actually be alone, not using my house as a hotel while you decide if you want to be with me or not." You should have seen her face. She went completely silent, like she didn't know what to say, and then she started with how I was being extreme, that she hadn't said she wanted to leave me, just that she needed time. And I told her, "Look, Natalie, I'm not kicking you out with anger or anything, but if you really need this time, then do it right, not halfway. I'm not going to be your plan B while you explore what else is out there." She started crying and told me I didn't understand her, that I was being unfair, but I stood firm on my position. I gave her a week to pack her things and go wherever she wanted, but during that week she'd sleep in the guest room. The next few days were awkward as hell. She packed in silence. I worked from home trying to act like everything was normal, but it wasn't. Trevor came over a couple times to have beers with me and told me I had done the right thing, that if she wanted to leave, then let her leave completely, not halfway. My sister called me when she found out and told me basically the same thing, to stand firm, because I deserved someone who was sure they wanted to be with me. At the end of the week, Natalie moved in with her younger sister to an apartment like 20 minutes from my house. The first 2 weeks after she left were weird. I'm not going to lie, I missed having someone in the house. I missed the routine, but I also felt relieved not having to deal with all that drama. Natalie would text me occasionally, asking how I was. Super casual messages like, "Hey, what are you doing? How's work?" And I'd respond, but short, without giving much conversation. About 3 weeks passed and I started hearing things. Susan, my neighbor, who is basically the official neighborhood gossip and who's like 60 years old, saw me taking out the trash one Saturday and tells me, "Hey Blake, I saw your ex the other day at the corner cafe with a guy. They looked very cozy." And I just told her, "Oh well, She's single now, so she can do whatever she wants, and I went back inside before she could tell me more details that I honestly wasn't interested in. But then Trevor told me a friend of his had seen her at a bar downtown with someone, and later my sister told me one of her friends saw her at the movies with a different guy. And I was like, well, she's definitely finding herself, I guess. I didn't feel jealous or anything. Rather, I felt like a kind of satisfaction from having made the right decision to get her out of my house. Because imagine if I had accepted the break and she was still living with me while dating other guys. It would have been humiliating. So we get to the 4th week after the separation, and Natalie sends me a long text, like an essay, saying she missed me, that she had been thinking a lot about us, that she wanted us to meet up to talk. I responded after like 2 hours, pretty short, and told her we could meet at the park near my house one Saturday afternoon. I didn't want her coming to my house because I already knew where this was going, and I didn't want to give her any hope that things could go back to how they were. I got to the park and she was already there, sitting on a bench, and when she saw me, she stood up and gave me a hug that I didn't fully return, just like put my hands on her shoulders lightly. We sat down, and she started talking about how these last days had been horrible, that she realized she made a mistake, that what we had was special, that nobody knew her like I did. Basically the whole typical speech from someone who realized the grass wasn't greener on the other side. I let her talk, didn't interrupt her once, and when she finished, I asked her if she had gone out with other people during this time. She turned red and said she had met some people but nothing serious, that she was just trying to understand what she wanted. I told her, look, Natalie, I appreciate you being honest, but the reality is that you wanted this break. You decided you needed to explore other options, and I'm not going to be the consolation prize you come back to when you realize you didn't find anything better. She started crying and telling me it wasn't like that she loved me, that I was the love of her life. And I just told her that if I really had been the love of her life, she wouldn't have felt the need to look for something else. I stood up from the bench and told her I wished her the best, that I hoped she found what she was looking for, but it wasn't going to be with me. She stayed there crying while I walked away. And I'm not going to lie, it felt horrible in the moment, but it also felt good. Like I was finally taking control of my life, and not letting someone treat me like an option. The next few days, I gathered all of Natalie's remaining things, some sweatshirts, some books, random stuff she had left, and took them to her sister's house. Her sister opened the door and looked at me with pity and told me Natalie was devastated, that she hadn't stopped crying, and I just handed her the box and told her to take care of her sister. I wasn't rude or anything, but I didn't stick around to chat either. About another 6 weeks passed after that meeting at the park, and I was already in my own groove. I had started going to the gym more often, had gone out with Trevor to various places. I had even gone on a couple dates with girls I met on apps, nothing serious, but just to socialize and remember there were more options out there. And then I get a message on Instagram from a guy I didn't know. His name was Cameron, and he tells me we need to talk about Natalie. I thought he was a stalker or something weird, but the guy sent me a photo of him with Natalie that was clearly recent and told me if we could meet at a cafe. We agreed to meet on a Thursday after work at a Starbucks halfway between our houses. Cameron turned out to be a normal guy, about my age, worked in sales or something like that, and basically told me that he had been dating Natalie the last few weeks, before she asked, to see me at the park, that he thought things were going well between them, but that suddenly she told him she needed time because she had to work things out with her ex, meaning me. He told me at first he understood and gave her space. But then he found out through mutual friends that Natalie was trying to get back with me while still texting him saying she just needed a few days. Cameron said he felt played and wanted me to know that she was basically manipulating the situation with both of us, keeping her options open. I sat there processing all this and asked Cameron why he was telling me all this. And he told me because he felt bad for me, that no guy deserved to be treated like Plan B, and that when he confronted Natalie about this, she admitted to him that she didn't know what she wanted, but that she didn't want to be alone. I thanked Cameron for being honest with me. We shook hands like male solidarity, and each went our separate ways. That night, Natalie sent me like 20 messages asking if we could talk, saying she heard I met up with Cameron and that he was lying, that things weren't how he was painting them. I didn't respond to a single one of her messages. The next day, she kept sending me messages, then called me like 10 times, and I ignored her completely. Then, Saturday morning, I'm there relaxing, drinking coffee, and watching YouTube when the doorbell rings. I go to open thinking it's Trevor, or maybe an Amazon package, and I find Natalie standing there with red and swollen eyes. She looked terrible, honestly. She came in without me inviting her, which annoyed me, but I didn't say anything, and started with all the drama about how she needed me, that she had made the biggest mistake of her life, that I was the only one who understood her, that all the other guys were trash compared to me. Basically everything she thought I wanted to hear. I let her talk for like 5 minutes, standing there at the entrance of my house with my arms crossed, and when she finished, I told her very calmly, "Natalie, I need you to listen to what I'm going to tell you and listen well. You decided you needed to explore other options, you had your chance to do it, and now that you realized you didn't find anything better, you want to come back like nothing happened. But I'm not your backup option. I'm not the guy who's going to be waiting here with open arms every time you realize you made a mistake. I deserve someone who's sure they want to be with me from the beginning, not someone who chooses me by elimination." She started crying harder and telling me I was cruel, that I had no heart, that after 5 years I owed her at least a chance to fix things. And I told her, "I don't owe you anything, Natalie. I gave you 5 years of my life. I opened my house to you. I was there for you in everything. And when you decided it wasn't enough and you needed to see what else was out there, I respected your decision, but I also made my own not to wait for you." I opened the door and asked her to leave, and she just stood there without moving, like waiting for me to change my mind. But I just repeated, "Please leave, Natalie." Finally, she left, walking slowly to her car while still crying, and I closed the door and felt like a huge weight had been lifted off me. The following weeks were interesting. Natalie kept trying to contact me by every possible means: messages, calls, emails. She even sent me a physical letter to my house, literally a handwritten letter. But I didn't respond to anything. Trevor told me he was proud of me for standing firm, my sister too, and even Susan, the neighbor, told me one day that she had seen Natalie drive by several times on the street like waiting to see me, which seemed kind of stalker to me, but I decided to ignore it. I started focusing on myself, on my work, on my hobbies. I had stopped doing many things I liked when I was with Natalie because she always wanted to do other things or simply wasn't interested in my hobbies. I went back to playing video games with Trevor on Friday nights, started taking cooking classes on Saturdays to learn to make something more than fettuccine alfredo, and even signed up for a hiking club because I had always wanted to do more outdoor activities. But Natalie hated walking. I felt free, light, like I was finally living my life for me, and not to please someone else. Like 2 months after all the drama, my sister told me she had heard that Natalie had lost her job, something about staff cuts at the company where she worked, and that she had moved to a pretty crappy apartment in a not very good area of the city because it was all she could afford with her savings. Part of me felt sorry for her. I'm not going to lie, because 5 years with someone doesn't get erased overnight, but another part of me thought maybe this was the universe teaching her a lesson about the consequences of her decisions. It'll sound harsh, but it's the truth. Now, I'm planning a trip to Japan with Trevor for next year. Something I had always wanted to do but never could, because Natalie said Japan didn't interest her, and that we should go to the beach in Mexico or something instead. I'm casually dating a girl I met at cooking classes. Nothing serious yet, but it's fun and there's no drama, just 2 people getting to know each other without crazy expectations. At work, they just gave me a raise, and I'm considering starting to look for a new car, because mine is like 8 years old now and is starting to have problems. The house feels different now. More mine somehow. Like I can finally breathe without having to worry about what someone else wants or needs. I changed some furniture, painted the living room a color I like but that Natalie said was too dark, put up my band posters that she said looked immature. It's funny how when you're in a relationship you make little sacrifices here and there without realizing it. And when you get out of it, you realize how much you had stopped being yourself. Do I regret how I handled the situation? No, not at all. I could have forgiven her. I could have accepted her apologies and given her another chance, and we'd probably be together right now. But happy? I doubt it very much. Because it always would have been in the back of my mind the doubt of whether she really chose me or if she only came back to me because the other options didn't work out. And I can't live like that. With that constant insecurity, wondering if at any moment she's going to decide she needs another break to find herself again. Last week, Trevor asked me if I ever miss Natalie, and I told him the truth, that sometimes I miss the idea of having a partner, of having someone to share things with, but that I don't specifically miss Natalie or the relationship we had. And that's enough for now, I guess.